Excellent. The violence. Well, the voting. Let's get right to the violence.
Let's get right to it.
Shoot to kill. See an Antifa? Shoot to kill.
Yeah.
Them. Done with this bullshit.
That is video that has now been released from a documentary crew embedded with Roger Stone for some time. It happened before the 2020 election. And there, I understand much of it had to be bleeped out. A little bit more of it should have been than was. But anyway, it's him saying, forget the voting. I'm not interested in it. Let's just skip to the violence. If you see Antifa, shoot to kill. That's what he said. He's gonna run from it. His attempt to distract you from what he said is hilarious, and we'll get to that. But this video was released by Christopher Guldbrandsen and Frederick Marbell. There's other video that they got as well. We're gonna talk about some of it here. Others will be released tomorrow when the January 6 hearings resume. Bear in mind, the Washington Post says that later in that same video, Stone followed up his call for violence saying, only kidding, we renounce violence completely. We totally renounce violence. The left is the only ones who engage in violence. This is of course like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks before January 6th, so that's fun. Anyway, the filmmakers told Don Lemon they found Stone's backtracking insincere and said it was done, quote, with more of a wink and a nod. That's sort of what I would have expected. In any event, he had been spending the months leading up to that point largely saying the same thing. This voting isn't necessary. We shouldn't abide by the results of the election. He said in July of 2020, the election will not be normal. Sorry, we're not accepting them, he said, of the anticipated results. We're challenging them in court. If the electors show up at the Electoral College, armed guards will throw them out. I'm challenging all of it. And the judges we're going to are judges I appointed. There he's speaking as Trump. So definitely a guy who on the one hand loves democracy and on the other hand had a lot of faith that Trump was gonna legitimately win this thing, Rayyvana.
I love the, oh, it was just a joke. I was just kidding. It reminds me of, a lot of Twitch streamers and YouTubers who say something in a live stream that might violate TOS. Follow it up by saying, oh, in Minecraft, in a video game, in Roblox. Like, I didn't mean it in real life. So it's sort of Roger Stone was just like, oh, shoot Antifa on sight in a video game. I was joking. It wasn't real life. But I mean, it really shouldn't surprise anybody. Roger Stone has been trying to undermine democracy for decades. He was involved in the Brooks Brothers riots, which helped George Bush win the 2000 election, which he otherwise would not have. So yeah, I mean, it's his job is essentially to undermine democracy.
100%. Yeah, and to be very clear, most of them will never imply or didn't imply at this point that Trump could ever legitimately lose, or that the polling, which had been consistent for literally months that he was behind, could be true. Roger Stone does in the videos. I'm just gonna read this quote for you. He said, so let's say that Trump is a little behind right now, which he probably is. That doesn't bother me. But even if he wins an honest election, we're not gonna have an honest election. They're stealing this blind in Florida right now. No, like this is like, again, it's Roger Stone. Nobody's surprised by this. He was never going to accept the results. They'd probably prefer if Trump legitimately won, but if he didn't, they don't care. They're not interested in democracy. They're interested in power. They can't make that any clearer to you. By the way, we're gonna get to his response in a sec, but there's another clip of him and his crew on January 6th after things don't work out the way they wanted and democracy didn't end that day. Stay tuned. They're like getting ready to flee. So there's this clip of him on the phone in the DC Willard Hotel in what he dubbed the war room. Who he's talking to isn't yet clear, they say, but he can be heard telling them, all right, well, we're gonna start pulling our stuff together. He then turns to Kristen Davis, a close associate, and says, let's pack, we're out of here as soon as possible. They wanna get out of town. You definitely are innocent. You didn't do anything wrong or intend to do anything wrong. If the second the plot falls apart, you flee the city limits. That's what I would say, Rayyvana.
Oh yeah, I mean, pretty much every time I do something that's totally legal, my first thought is, I gotta get the hell out of town. Like, every time I'm following the law to a T, I'm like, well, it's time to go. But I mean, it's one of the things that I think is just so offensive is how flagrantly he is violating the law and doing so pretty publicly, and he's just like sort of smiling and laughing about it because he's fairly confident that he will suffer no serious repercussions because he's been meddling in elections for years. He's hoping that even if something were to like be more serious down the road as far as repercussions for him come, he's like, well, I've got something in the works for the next presidential election. Let me get a pardon, let me get my sentence commuted if that happens. Like, I'm gonna be okay, but but just like the doing this so in the open because he's so confident is like, it hurts to watch.
Yeah. Let me close by just reading his response because we're obligated, we're serious ethical journalists. He says, I challenge the accuracy and the authenticity of these videos and believe they've been manipulated and selectively edited. I also point out that the filmmakers do not have the legal right to use them. Well, wait, they're not real. What are you talking about? If they're made up, if I invented them, I can use them if I want to. Pick a defense buddy. How ironic that Kim Kardashian and I are both subjected to computer manipulated videos on the same day. Okay, Stone, stay on message. I understand Pete Davidson moved on, but this is not the time to shoot your shot, okay, buddy? Anyway, he goes on to say, the excerpts you provided below prove nothing. Certainly, they do not prove I had anything to do with the events of January 6th. Well, how could they? You said they're made up. You seem to be implying they're authentic and yet don't prove anything wrong. He said they're deep fake videos. You chose to have the documentarians with you for 3 years and they suffered, by the way, I'm sure, having to spend time with you for multiple years. You can't now claim afterward that the videos are all deep fakes. But by the way, get used to this. From now on, when a politician or someone involved in politics says something bad on tape, they're automatically going to claim that it's a deepfake, and sometimes they might be right. Some videos are manipulated, but they're gonna claim it in every single case. Let's just be clear about that.
I just think it's wild that he's claiming both that it is manipulated, that it's a deepfake, and that somehow it's illegal for them to use it. And somehow, even if it's not a deepfake, it doesn't prove what they're trying to say it proves. But it's definitely a deepfake, but it's also illegal footage obtained illegally by the camera crew that I gave permission to follow me around for 3 years, but it's fake and it's illegal, so you can't use it.
Rayyvana, what if it is a deep fake? It was manipulated, but he made it and copyright wrote it, and now they've stolen it. It all comes together. It's all perfect. Anyway, we'll see what happens with him. I honestly, I don't think he's gonna testify or whatever at the hearings. I honestly don't want him to because he'll just say a bunch of crazy stuff. Like, there's no limits on Roger Stone. We had our little showdown, with Alex Jones at the RNC, and I remember Roger Stone. Roger Stone is exactly the sort of toady that he stood like a couple feet to the side and back from Alex Jones, and like when things got tense, he like receded into this crowd of InfoWars people like Homer into a bush. It was hilarious. He wants to like pretend that he's a tough guy, like shoot to kill. Don't come near me. Nobody was doing anything. There wasn't any violence. I don't know why he was fleeing for his life, but he was. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.